These are the worst things that have happened to Meg Griffin in Family Guy. Starting with the time Meg gets forced to be Peter's personal chauffeur and gets her head set on fire in the process. So during a Griffin family yard sale, Peter comes across a pair of racing gloves, and determined to have them, Peter haggles the deal of a lifetime with himself.
$10, 2, 7, 4, 5.50, 10, sold. Sucker, I would have gone to 15 easy. I am so stupid.
Feeling the need for speed, Peter sets up a ramp to jump over cars despite Lois's nagging, and determined to defy death, Peter revs up his station wagon and prepares to do something very stupid. Nailed it. Later on, Joe arrives all copped out to revoke Peter's driver's license. According to Joe, Peter is being charged with reckless driving and disturbing the peace. I know what you're thinking. That's it? I think his crimes go way beyond that. Peter is willing to hand over his license, if Joe can reach it.
This is in poor taste, Peter. You're starting to piss me off. You're starting to piss me off!
Without his license, Peter is stuck at home, unable to drive anywhere. Lois believes this is well-deserved and says time away from the bar will do him some good. You gotta remember, this was before Uber was invented. Dark times. Peter tries to cope by pretending he's at the bar on Cheers, but gets mad at one of the characters and punches the screen. So now there's no beer and no TV. That didn't work out too well for another animated sitcom dad.
No TV and no beer make Homer something something.
Go crazy?
Don't mind if I do!
Peter tries to amuse himself with activities like hiding in the fridge, but this just makes Lois more annoyed. But luckily, Lois has found Peter a personal driver. Meg. Lame.
Well, it was either Meg or a talking monkey smoking a cigar, but I didn't think you'd like that.
Lois, do you even know your husband? Peter is less than thrilled about being driven around by Meg, acting pretty childish during their drive. Luckily, Meg knows how to keep Peter, preoccupied. But he can't help but think it would be more fun with friends. So Peter gets Joe, Cleveland, and Quagmire to join in on the ride. Clearly intoxicated from a few car beers, which is illegal by the way, the group continues to mess with Meg by talking loudly, giving her a wet willy, and lighting her head on fire.
Hey Meg, I lit your scalp on fire.
Thankfully, Quagmire puts that out with a spray of beer. How thoughtful. Furious, Meg slams on the brakes, which makes someone rear-end their car. The driver gets out to yell at her, but Meg has had enough. She beats the tar out of the man while the drunk friends look on. They seem shocked at first, but then realize what they just saw was the coolest thing ever.
Meg, that was awesome!
Peter can't wait to brag about what Meg did, but Lois is mortified by her outburst and insists she apologizes to that man. Peter disagrees, having found a new respect for his daughter, and all it took was pushing her to the point of violence. Now best buddies, Meg takes Peter on several activities, including smashing mailboxes, going to the drive-in, and even finally nailing that jump over the cars. The two share some lemonade as Peter explains that he's had such a fun time with her, even admitting to some of the awful things he's done to her in the past.
Look, I know sometimes I give you a hard time, farting in your cereal when you go to get milk and then laughing.
The two share a sweet moment before Joe arrives and tells Peter his driving suspension is up. With his license returned, he has no need for Meg to drive him around. When she asks if he'll go back to being mean to her, he pretty much agrees, but says that they can stay secret best friends. Not sure that's worth anything.
Who wants a glass of fresh lemonade?
Not me! What I want is a fresh glass of better daughter!
Well, at least Meg got to be happy for 5 minutes. There's no happiness for Meg when she gets kicked out of college amid an admissions scandal in Meg Goes to College. Peter tells the guys he's torn on giving Meg money to go to college. If he does that, how will he have money to spend on alcohol? Fair point. Jerome convinces him it's a good idea, as his daughter bought him a car when she eventually got a good job. Always a fan of free stuff, Peter decides to help Meg after all. Lois and Peter meet with Meg's principal to find ways to get her into college, with Peter saying he's willing to do anything.
I guess I'll meet you in the car.
He didn't mean you have to sleep with him.
There are a few options.
The trio plan to fake Meg's athletic history, of which she has none. This way, colleges will be more inclined to accept her. Not long after, Meg receives a letter from Brown. Drum roll, please.
I've been accepted!
With that, and seemingly hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans, Meg is now a college girl. The family is ecstatic about getting to move Meg into her dorm, with everyone becoming enamored with the campus and lifestyle.
You think I'll go to college one day?
Oh, yeah.
Well, a boy can dream. When walking through the dorms, Peter overhears a student saying he has an open bed after his roommate died. Ready to live out his college dreams, Peter decides to pose as the kid's roommate.
You're my roommate? You're Ashok Chandrasekhar?
God bless you.
Classic Ashok.
Things seem to be going well for Meg, who gets invited to a party by a guy named Xander, but things aren't too different from home.
Heads up.
Peter reveals he's staying, doing all the things college students do, like becoming a campus hippie or joining a sorority. Basically the stuff of nightmares.
They don't let us out of the pile. They're so mean, Meg. They're so mean.
Meg continues to get annoyed by Peter's big man on campus shtick, calling him a fraud for not even being a student. He fires back by admitting to fabricating her application to get her in, right in front of the dean. Oops. Now back home, Lois is worried she and Peter could go to jail for what they did. On top of that, an angry Meg scolds them for lying as well.
Maybe if you believed in me, none of this would have happened.
Meg, honey, nobody wanted you out of this house more than we did.
Brian suggests Meg try to prove she can do all the things she said she could on her application, that way they'd have to let her back in. Cue the montage. Meg manages to do it all. Baseball, diving, gymnastics, and even a Russian rendition of Love is a Battlefield. Her final test? Windsurfing over a waterfall. With the wind in her hair and fire raging in her heart, she doesn't do it. One day you're a brown, the next you're floating down the river. That's just the college experience. Who needs college when you can become a pop star and have your innocence stolen on live TV like in the episode Don't Make Me Over? We find Meg in her natural habitat, fawning over a boy she likes, Craig Hoffman. Her friends convince her to ask him out, but things don't go her way when she asks for a date.
That's about as likely as me playing by someone else's rules besides my own, which I would never do. I play by my own rules.
Swing and a miss. At home, Meg asks her parents a loaded question of if she's ugly. Obviously, they say she's not until they hear who said it.
Craig Hoffman.
Craig Hoffman said that? Well, he's a sharp kid. You might be ugly.
Lois tells her not to feel down because of kids at school, promising to take her shopping for some hot new outfits to cheer her up. While shopping around at the mall, Meg tries on some new outfits and gets, let's call it constructive criticism from a store attendant.
How do these jeans look?
Coincidentally, the news station is handing out makeovers for the most unappealing folks in town. Lois manages to get Trisha Takanawa's attention, and the cameraman's reaction more than seals the deal for her. I guess everyone is just carrying gasoline on them now. Meg returns home with her brand new makeover and impresses Peter, who compliments her in a way only Peter can.
Oh, Meg, honey, I always thought you were beautiful just the way
Back at school, Meg draws a ton of stares with her new look, even finally landing a date with Craig Hoffman.
Now that you're attractive, how about we go out sometime?
Gosh, I'd love to.
Great, I'll pick you up whenever I feel like it.
Later, the family attends the debut performance of Peter and his pals' new band at the local prison. There's just one problem.
Oh my God, we don't know any songs.
Outraged, the prisoners start to shout and throw things at the band. Trying to salvage the situation, Lois rushes the family on stage to grab the instruments, but the commotion stops when the inmates get a look at Meg and fall in love with her.
God, I could strangle her all night long.
Boy, that's not healthy, is it? That's the first place I go to.
Lois tosses Meg a microphone, and suddenly Meg is a bona fide star. The makeover must have given her a new voice actress, too. With new outfits and the seemingly telepathic connection to know this brand new song, the Griffins adequately entertain the inmates. Afterwards, they're approached by the chairman of Interscope Records, who promises to make the family filthy rich. On the fast track to fame, the Griffins record their new song in the studio, guided by Dr. Diddy. Hopefully no relation to that Diddy. The good doctor says Meg needs to be front and center, as her looks will help generate the most money, because if America loves anything, it's blonde teen pop stars.
That's the smartest thing I've ever heard anyone say about anything.
Lois is unsure of pushing Meg into such a revealing position, but Meg and Peter are all for it for the money and fame. Business seems to be booming for the family, apparently releasing 3 albums even though we keep hearing the same song. Don't think too hard about it. All seems good, but tensions rise when Meg starts bossing Lois around. Lois is worried all the fame has gone to her head, but Peter says they should just do the classic move of ignoring it and pretending it goes away. Works every time. No time to worry about that because Diddy has an important announcement.
Meg, you and your family are gonna perform on Saturday Night Live.
I'm not. bitter or jealous or anything, though. While backstage, Meg meets Jimmy Fallon, who won't stop looking at the camera. He invites Meg back to his dressing room where the two get very familiar with one another. But it turns out the whole thing was captured on camera and was used for the opening of SNL. A heartbroken Meg comes crying to her parents, and once Peter finally works out what just happened, he sets out to make things right. And by that I mean he's gonna beat up Jimmy Fallon. A rare fatherly W for Peter, even if that's not why he's doing it.
All right, now where's the guy who slept with my daughter?
Meg goes from desired to undesired as her family gives her up to intruders when the house is broken into in Untitled Griffin family history. While Peter and Lois are doing normal couple things, the sound of glass breaking is heard downstairs. Armed with a bat, Peter goes to investigate, seeing 3 masked men breaking into their home. Meg comes out to investigate as well.
Dad! What is it? What's going on? I heard a noise. Is somebody downstairs?
Oh, God, Meg, you startled me. I'm sorry.
He's got the reflexes of a cat and the brain of one too. Peter rushes the family into the attic where he reveals a steel-reinforced panic room. Once inside, he reveals that there are plenty of cameras to keep an eye on the house, but no phone to call the police. Worried about their chances of dying, Peter decides to distract everyone by telling them the story of the Griffin family history. From there, we're treated to the history of the world, from the Big Bang to evolution creating man to Moses Griffin freeing the Jews from Egypt. Never knew Moses had a last name, but hey, I'm a guy on the internet, not a historian. Taking a break from the stories, Lois asks how they plan to survive since there's no food in the panic room.
Right, good thinking. Meg, go get us some sandwiches.
A stupid plan, but it does give Brian the idea to have Meg go down the vent to sneak out and get help. Meg says she can't do that, but luckily Peter has a very gross solution.
We need to grease her up so she doesn't get stuck. Everybody spit on Meg.
Stop! 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 Okay, I can't!
It's taking everything in me to not make a Hawk Tuah joke. Must remain strong. What Meg actually meant was that she couldn't do it because of the burglars. Peter thinks she'll be fine because, as we just witnessed, she's covered in spit and the intruders won't want to touch her. Don't think they needed spit to achieve that. Against her will, Meg is thrown down the vent. The family goes to check the cameras to see if she's okay and finds her in the kitchen making sandwiches. I thought the plan was to go get help, but okay. Of course, Peter has to ruin things by using a microphone.
Oh, God, Meg, they know you're there. Quick, scrape that mustard off. Use the other mustard.
With Meg captured, the intruders try to communicate with the family by writing notes to the camera.
We have your son.
Meg's our daughter.
Common mistake, happens all the time. Lois asks Peter to do something. You'd think she meant about Meg, but nope. Peter decides to turn the camera off and tell another story. Luckily, Peter has a flare gun. Should probably take it out of his hands, though. Worried about Meg's safety, Lois insists that they try to find a way out.
If we angle it through the vent, we might be able to alert the authorities.
See, this is exactly what I was worried about. Well, while the Griffins are drowning, let's check in on Meg to see how she's doing. Surprisingly, she's actually perfectly fine and hanging out with the intruders as they loot the house. She asks if this is the part where the intruders do whatever they want with her, and one of them responds with what every teen girl wants to hear.
Oh no! Oh God! Oh no! 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 No!
She tries to pressure them into it, but they refuse. They're truly horrified when she forces herself onto them. A real prey becomes the predator switcheroo. Up in the panic room, the family is running out of oxygen and, oh hey, it's the meme!
Since we're all gonna die, there's one more secret I feel I have to share with you. I did not care for The Godfather.
What?
Did not care for The Godfather.
Before they can die arguing about classic movies, Joe busts them out, saving their lives. He reveals that they've captured the intruders, but now they're filing sexual assault charges against Meg. Totally uninterested, the family embraces while Meg is carted off to jail. At least she kinda saved the day. It looks like Meg will just have to get used to being mistreated because in Seahorse, Seashell Party, Meg commits to being the family's punching bag forever. A vicious hurricane rocks Quahog, knocking out the TV signal and keeping the Griffin family trapped inside. Bored out of their minds, the family resorts to silly little games like Finger Bang. Am I allowed to say that on here? Of course, it's all fun and games until Meg tries to get involved.
No one wants to get finger banged by you, Meg.
Why don't you just go do that to yourself, Meg?
Jeez, I didn't know Finger Bang was so serious. Looking for more things to do, Peter suggests a sing-along where he sings, and I use that term loosely, the opening chase music from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. He just keeps going, and this is true for almost an entire minute before Meg's can opening breaks his concentration.
Damn it, Meg, will you stop that? That is so annoying.
Meg stands up for herself, which causes both Lois and Chris to come to Peter's defense. Undeterred, Meg continues to stand her ground.
You guys all think you're so much better than me.
Oh, Meg, that is the least fancy thing I have ever heard.
Hey, another meme! When Chris asks Meg what her deal is, Meg starts to open the emotional floodgates, starting with Chris himself. As siblings, she believes they should stand up for one another, but Chris never does.
Chris, you treat me like you hate me, and I don't know why. You say hurtful things to me constantly.
She asks for just a little bit of common decency towards her rather than jumping on the let's bully Meg bandwagon. Lois tries to shut her rant down, but that just makes Meg turn her focus on her mom. Meg points out that Lois always targets Meg's shortcomings, making Lois a hypocrite because of her own shady past. She cuts even deeper by saying that Lois failed her as a mother.
You're my mother, and you took a child's trust and smashed it into bits in a 17-year-long mission to destroy something that you killed a long time ago.
Capping this off by saying she doesn't want to see Lois again when she turns 18, Meg's words make Lois cry and admit to being a terrible mother. Man, this is getting pretty heavy. Maybe the next convo will be lighter? Peter certainly tries to make it lighter with a Harry Potter joke, but Meg is having none of that.
Oh, you think that's funny, fat ass?
Well, I don't know if it's funny. I think it's clever.
Meg starts to break down how selfish and stupid her father is, saying that he should be in jail for the things he's done. And I mean, honestly, where's the lie? I literally made a video saying this exact thing. This makes Peter laugh, so Meg starts to turn up the heat, calling him a complete failure and embarrassment.
Take a good look at yourself, Peter Griffin. You're a waste of a man.
Peter finally clues into the fact that he's being insulted and tries to have Lois stop her, but this just starts an avalanche of yelling as the family starts to tear each other down. Once they all gang up on Peter, he runs upstairs crying. After everyone explodes and leaves the room, Meg and Brian discuss what just happened. While Brian admires her for what she did, Meg can't help but think that standing up for herself just causes more issues.
Do you think it's possible that this family can't survive without some sort of lightning rod to absorb all the dysfunction?
Meg makes the realization that it may be her duty in the family to be the butt of the joke forever in order to keep things mostly sane, foregoing her own happiness in the process. Meg goes upstairs and apologizes to the family, essentially walking back everything she said and putting the blame all on her. This is pretty depressing, considering she'll continue to suffer so her family can stay happy. Bleak stuff. Tell you what, how about a quick pick-me-up before we continue? Good? Happy again? Alright, let's keep moving. Meg's eternal suffering continues when she's sold into slavery for Peter's benefit in 8 Simple Rules for Buying My Teenage Daughter. What a mouthful. Meg is stuck spending a boring evening with Stewie, who tries to strike up a conversation on interesting topics.
You know, Meg, if you kill yourself now, you'll probably get a full page in the yearbook.
This riveting conversation is broken by a ring at the door from Neil Goldman, who's making his daily attempt at asking Meg out on a date. She, of course, rejects him, fed up with him always bothering her. While out for date night, Peter and Lois stop by Mort's pharmacy to pick up some things for the evening. I'll let you figure those things out on your own.
My wife's got a headache this big. You know, it's like from the commercial. This big, only it's my junk.
When Peter reveals he forgot his wallet, Mort decides to open up a tab. Thinking this means free stuff, Peter is ready to go wild with unnecessary purchases. Peter and Lois finally return home to a relieved Meg, who puts her foot down and says she doesn't want to babysit anymore. She wants to be out, having a life. Wonder where she's going to find one of them. Peter continues to rack up his pharmacy tab by buying some Ipecac, a syrup used to make you vomit. Let's just skip past this real quick. Later on, Neil tries to ask Meg out again, this time with a very long message on a plane. A very, very long message. Wow, it's still going. Still going. This must have cost a fortune. Mortified, Meg is cheered up by Peter's entire stand of greeting cards, yet another addition to the tab. Peter tries to buy more random things, but Mort is ready to claim his tab at $34,000. It's obvious Peter doesn't have that kind of money, so he comes up with a different form of repayment.
All right, listen, I got another idea. What if I sold you my daughter?
Huh?
The deal is simple. Peter goes debt-free, and Neil gets to have Meg. To no one's surprise, Meg is incredibly mad about this. She refuses to go through with it, and as it turns out, Neil already has a girlfriend.
Wait, what?
Tired of being rejected by Meg, Neil went and found a new girl named Cecilia. With the deal seemingly off, Meg actually appears to be a little jealous. At school, Meg overhears Cecilia gushing over how amazing Neil is, and it becomes clear she really is jealous. Meg explains that he liked her first and she would have dated him eventually. Meg tries asking around to find a guy to date her to make Neil jealous, and she's even willing to pay for one. Clearly this will be easier said than done given the first guy's reaction.
That sounds cool, but I'm gonna be in the hospital that night.
She swings by the pharmacy with her new upside-down faced boyfriend, but there's just no coming between these lovebirds. Meg finally throws herself at Neil, begging to be his girlfriend. Neil is skeptical, so Meg agrees to sign the contract that makes him own her. This is basically how marriage used to work. Now a legally binding couple, Neil gets a bit handsy with Meg. She pushes him off, but he explains that she needs to fulfill her contractual obligations. That means she has to do whatever he says, like putting on his pajamas.
Neil, would you stop kicking? Just hold still. Hold still. Quit.
Things get even harder, giggity, when Meg is made to act like a workhorse. Meg kicks her horseshoes off at home, clearly not realizing what she got herself into. The contract is airtight, but can be broken if Neil cheats on Meg. This settles it. Peter is going to find someone to seduce Neil. Psst, it's Lois. Better than Peter in a dress, I guess. The family puts their plan into motion, luring Neil to a motel under the guise of it hosting an X-Men convention. Showing up in the worst Wolverine cosplay I've ever seen, Neil finds a scantily clad Lois dressed as Mystique.
Well, 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 look at this, Meg. Your boyfriend is violating both your contract and my wife.
Meg is excited to be free, which confuses Neil. She explains she was just jealous and let her emotions get the best of her. Wanting Meg to be with him only if she really wants to be, Neil rips up the contract and goes right back to Cecilia. Every situation with Meg really is a lose-lose, isn't it? But Meg hasn't given up on love, only this time it leads to her kidney being stolen during a holiday gone wrong in Valentine's Day in Quahog. Love is in the air one fine Valentine's Day as Meg is preparing to go on a date with a guy she met on the internet. The guy, named Toby, comes to pick her up, acting like quite the gentleman. Dining at seemingly the finest sports bar in town, Meg and Toby form a quick connection in the whitest way possible.
Do you like Coldplay?
Am I a dull white guy? Yes, I like Coldplay.
Meg can't believe she found someone so in tune with her. They cheers over a glass of water, but things then take an unexpected turn.
So what should we do next?
Meg wakes up at a seedy motel dressed in only her underwear, sitting inside a tub filled with ice. Oh yeah, also worth mentioning that her kidney's gone. Toby admits to harvesting her kidney, which may just be how the kids show that they like each other nowadays. Turns out that black market organs are worth a lot of money, and Toby promised his bosses he'd get a fresh one. Despite him drugging her and literally harvesting her kidney, Meg is desperate enough to force him into holding his promise.
You promised we'd spend Valentine's Day together. The whole day.
Whether it be because he's too nice or too stupid, Toby agrees to spend the rest of the holiday with Meg. Despite the huge scar on her side, Meg and Toby spend a nice day out on the town eating ice cream, ice skating, eating Chinese food, and having caricatures done. Looks just like her. As the day winds down, Toby returns Meg home with one kidney less than when she left, but not for long as he gifts Meg her kidney back. The two share a passionate kiss to end their day. It's just so romantic. I wish someone would steal my kidney. Meg finally manages to feel the love from her father, but it takes nearly drowning to death and accidentally getting pregnant in Peter's daughter. During a heavy rainstorm, the Griffin house begins to flood. Lois insists that the family flee before the water gets higher, but Peter just can't leave without his beer. Designating Meg as the strongest swimmer, he sends her to the kitchen to retrieve it. Glad to see he's got his priorities in order. Meg goes underwater to retrieve the beer, but her shirt gets stuck, causing her to drown.
Peter, Meg's been in there a long time.
Boy, you cannot wait to criticize her at every turn, can you?
Go get her!
Finally, Peter does something right and swims in to save her. Oh, never mind.
She's in there right now, taking a nap underwater.
Great observation, Peter. Lois finally gets Peter to rescue her, but when she comes up unresponsive, Brian urges them to take her to a hospital. Once at the hospital, the family gets the rough news.
I'm afraid your coma's in a daughter.
I mean, your daughter's in a coma.
Evidently, laughter is not the best medicine. Lois worries that Meg may never come out of this coma, which makes Peter realize how much he's taken her for granted. Ya think?
Hi, Dad.
Regretful of his past, Peter vows to treat Meg right if she comes out of her coma. While the family sleeps at Meg's side, a young doctor comes in and lets them know they can probably go home. But as it turns out, Meg happens to awaken as soon as the handsome doctor touches her arm, making him the first thing she sees. The family is overjoyed, while Peter seems determined to keep his promise to Meg. Back at home, Peter appears to be a changed man, being as kind as possible to Meg. He's complimenting her, taking her to the movies, and even taking care of Meg's school bully. Maybe a little too excessively?
Say, can you do me a favor? You see that fire extinguisher there?
Dad, that's enough!
Peter says he'll do anything for Meg, all she has to do is name it. Funny he should say that because she does have something in mind. She wants to date her doctor, Michael. He does not approve, having grown super protective over Meg. Lois approves of the date, but Peter's mind races with all the terrible possibilities.
Maybe he's not even a boy. Maybe he's two dwarves in an overcoat wanting to see what sex is like with a big person.
That's certainly a possibility, I guess. After an awkward conversation about wombs and sitting on your hand, Peter eventually comes around and approves of Michael. Can't believe talking actually solves problems, who'da thunk? On their date, Meg and Michael seem to be getting along just fine until Michael seems to spot Peter at another table.
I think he's wearing some kind of disguise.
Oh my god, Dad!
Can we go one episode without Peter trying to get canceled? This is understandably too much for Michael, who decides to reluctantly part ways with Meg. 2 weeks later, and Meg still seems to be heartbroken over Michael. Only that's not the real reason for her tears.
I'm pregnant!
Ooh, the drama. Her parents are in total shock, unsure of how this could have happened. Regardless, Peter knows what to do.
I just want to talk to him.
Dad, this is ridiculous!
I just want to talk to him.
Peter forces his way into Michael's house, but when he hears about what's going on, he makes it clear that he wants to be there for Meg. He even proposes to her right there on the spot. Ah, young accidental pregnancy love. Peter arranges a bachelorette party for Meg, inviting all her friends before slipping out the door. I guess he's off to go have a night of, oh, he's gonna be the stripper, isn't he?
I might have to take you girls downtown.
Kids, close your eyes. Actually, adults too. Everyone close your eyes. The big day finally arrives, but Meg reveals she was wrong and isn't actually pregnant. She tells Michael at the altar, who has a unique response. Meg will be fine. She's used to seeing the back of guys now. Not like that. What she probably isn't used to is attention from the president, but that's exactly what Meg gets when she's creepily assaulted by Donald Trump and Trump Guy. Peter lands a new job at the White House as President Trump's press secretary. How'd he get this job, you may wonder? Well, it's a long story involving a whole other episode. All you need to know is that he's here and has a very important job.
Your main job here is to go in rooms before me to make sure there's no static electricity.
Riveting stuff. With the new job comes a new home as Peter moves the family to Washington, D.C. Everyone seems excited about the change. Well, everyone except Meg, who misses her old home.
Tomorrow at James Woods High, it's Scoliosis Spine Check Day. It's the one day a year I get touched.
Lois asks that she give it a chance. After all, life sucked for Meg and Quahog. How bad could it get here? Very bad, actually. The Griffins attend a fancy White House dinner filled with important people who keep confusing Meg for Governor Chris Christie. Most of the family is enamored with the pageantry of the dinner, but Meg just wants to leave. While looking for an exit in the kitchen, she comes across Ivanka Trump.
Ivanka Trump has a gentle breeze indoors.
The two kinda hit it off, bonding over their fat idiot dads who had a once successful TV show. Their words, not mine. Later that evening, Meg re-enters the party decked out in some of Ivanka's designer clothes, drawing stares from the entire room. Now dressed to impress, Ivanka takes Meg to meet her presidential father. When Ivanka leaves, Meg gushes about her admiration for the president while Trump does that thing he did. You all know that quote, don't make me repeat it. The next day, Meg goes to her family to tell them about the inappropriate touching Trump did. In typical fashion, her parents don't believe her and instead focus on worrying how this could jeopardize Peter's career.
I spent a whole day working on this. You want me to just throw away in one day what I've spent a whole day trying to build?
Peter decides to still go to work even after everything Meg has told him. Wow, they really are a good representation of a typical politician's family. Sorry, was that too spicy? When Peter comes to give Trump the good news at a press conference, he talks for way too long before realizing he's actually talking to a butternut squash.
Well, if this lumpy orange garbage vegetable is here, then where's President Donald Trump?
He's actually making another unwanted move on Meg. Before things can go too far, the Griffin family walks in on the act. Peter goes to stand up to Trump, but the president asks that if Peter Griffin is allowed to be a jerk all the time, then why can't he? This meta commentary is blowing my mind. In a shocking display of decency, Peter quits, vowing to be a nice guy from now on. Any takers on how long that'll last? This new vow goes for the whole family as well, supporting each other and saying nice things. Meg throws Peter a softball to compliment her. He really tries.
Your hair is, very hat. You're a hat owner.
Peter later confronts Trump, saying that while he isn't a nice person, he still shouldn't be held to the same expectations as the president. Trump fires back, saying that most kids learned a bunch of obscene jokes from watching him over the years.
We're a cartoon. You can turn us off. You're the president. We can't turn you off. And you're on, like, all the time.
When Peter insults Trump's status as a billionaire, the two engage in a famous Peter versus chicken fight. Only instead of a chicken, it's just a guy with hair like a chicken. The two brawl until saved from a fall by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Can always bet on Canada to save the day.
He touched my daughter, but I punched him like 100 times, so we're fine now.
And with that, Meg's honor is restored. Is what I would say if this actually solved anything. At least now I don't have to make any more political jokes. And I've got some good ones too, about the guy you like and the guy you don't like. What can be worse than being assaulted? How about poisoning yourself with food until you lose both your legs, just like what happens to Meg in Girl Interneted? While sitting together on the couch, Meg, Chris, and Peter encounter the most annoying commercial for the most annoying looking convention, an influencer-themed event called Streaming Con. And no, I'm not bitter because I didn't get invited.
Teen influencers Tyler Oakley.
Oh?
Lele Pons.
What?
Glozell.
Where?
Joey Graceffa.
When?
Meg asks Peter to take her, and since his mind turned to static during that commercial, he's already forgotten what it is. While attending a talk by big-time influencer Corey from Corey's World, Peter challenges him that he can't make Meg internet famous. In the blink of an eye, Corey manages to get Meg trending with the hashtag FridgeBodMeg. Hey, fame is fame, right? Now that Meg is an internet personality, Peter is determined to find something in her to take her to the next level of fame.
Yeah, actually, I can.
Wow, I feel like even trying to repeat that would get me thrown in jail. Determined to build her brand, Meg embraces the refrigerator part of her nickname. Literally. She shows off all the things in her fridge she can eat, biting off a bit more than she can chew before rushing to the bathroom and, oh god, please turn off the camera. Meg, please. I don't want to see what comes next. This surprisingly works, gaining her more followers the more she posts. Meg even gets invited to hold a meet and greet at an ice cream shop where she can show off her, I guess you can call them skills? Damn, looks like she got creamed. Editor, add in a sound effect, would you please? I'm going to hell, aren't I? At the hospital, it's revealed Meg has developed type 2 diabetes and that her blood has become pure sap. That's something you won't get from WebMD. News of Meg's diagnosis gets out, landing her a spokeswoman role for a new insulin drug called Pancresta. Who can argue with a commercial like this?
Pancresta is not for everyone, just the sexy people. Lame losers should not take Pancresta.
Lois worries about the lasting effects this will have on Meg, but with her school ready to throw her a pep rally, Meg doesn't have time to think about losing limbs. Despite her feet seeming to literally start decaying, Meg continues streaming herself eating unhealthy food. Anything for the clout. The day the pep rally comes and a now footless Meg looks on at all the people she's influenced, including her friends.
You've inspired us to gain all this weight, and we just wanted to say thanks.
Feeling guilty over her influence, Meg starts to preach healthy eating, which doesn't sit well with her followers. All that stomping and chanting eventually makes the bleachers collapse, crushing a janitor to death. What a coincidence, I think we know someone who could use those feet. And we could use a like if you enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe to keep up to date on new videos we release. There's one you can click on right now. Be sure to check it out, and thanks for watching.